Right, so this is a chemistry and geology presentation, and we're going to talk about what classes to take, how they transfer, and the articulation agreement, why you might want to take them at Wake, and what the job market looks like. So for chemistry, here's just a straight list of the chemistry classes we offer. We offer more than what's on this list, but in general, these are the ones that students take if they want to transfer. So Chem 151 and 152 are General Chemistry 1 and 2, and they are guaranteed to transfer to any of the public universities as Chemistry 1 and Chemistry 2. So that's part of our articulation agreement. Once you've taken 151 and 152, depending on your major, you might take Organic Chemistry 1 and 2. If you're interested in health science, like radiography or X-ray technician, MRI, dental assisting, dental hygiene, or nursing, well, not nursing, but one of those health sciences, you might be interested in taking Chem 130 or Chem 131. They may transfer as a science elective, but they don't always transfer as chemistry. So you have to check with the receiving institution. I did want to mention, if you're in here, that most of the public universities request, they don't require, but they request that if you take the Chem 151 at a community college, that you also take the Chem 152 if you need it to transfer. So don't split the sciences across two colleges. That way you get a really comprehensive view of the chemistry. Professor Lineback.
For geology, we don't actually have a geology major at the community college that's going to be an AS degree. So what we suggest you do is every college that you go to for a geology major is going to require that you have the first and second chemistry. So you're better off taking Chem 151 and 152 at the community college and getting your AS degree in that. The geology classes, the first two geology classes you'll take at any four-year school will be Geology 111, Introductory Geology, and then Geology 113, Historical. 230, which is another course that a lot of students enjoy taking at Wake Tech. Environmental sometimes transfers as an elective, or not all schools have that as one of the base geologies that are required. So that's probably going to be your best degree if you know you're going to be a geology major. We have had some students, we ran a research program where NC State took some of our students who didn't know they were going to be geology majors. It was after they did some research at NC State, after they just took their first introductory class, that had not taken the first and second chemistry. So you can still get into the four-year schools without that, but if you know when you're coming in that you want to do that, you're better off taking Chem 151 and 152.
And even though we're not discussing biology here, we don't have a biologist. If you are a biology major, if you're doing biology, any of the medical sciences, biology majors also require Chem 151 and 152 as well. So like I mentioned before, how they transfer, the 151 and 152 transfer as General Chemistry 1 and 2, they are guaranteed to transfer as chemistry because it's part of our articulation agreement. Most of the private institutions will take our Chem 151 and 152 as general chemistry, but it's up to them. And Chem 251 and 252 transfer as organic. Anything to add?
In geology, like I said before, your 111, the introductory, and the articulation agreement is guaranteed to transfer as a science. Depending on what your major is going to end up being, the 113 or 230 may actually be just an elective. So you want to sort of verify that.
And it doesn't hurt if you change your mind later. These science classes do transfer as a science elective, which you're going to need when you get there. All right, so why take them at Wake Tech? So we don't have any reasons here. I thought we would kind of poll the crowd and see if you guys had any suggestions. Like, why do you think students take their sciences at Wake Tech? I was going to try to monitor the chat, though, but I'm rejecting.
I've got the chat for you.
Thanks. Anybody?
Smaller class size is one suggestion, or two.
Yeah. So smaller class size. Also, the cost is much less expensive at Wake Tech than it is at North Carolina State or UNC or ECU. You get a more personalized instruction at Wake Tech. So because of the smaller class sizes, your instructor probably knows your name.
I And Heather suggested accessibility to instructors, which I think is also important.
How many were in your first geology class, Professor Lineback?
Oh, probably 75.
My first chemistry class, which I was not successful at earning transferable credit, there were 300. So, any other reasons? All right. Do you have anything else to add?
I think one thing that, and it sort of got mentioned with accessibility to instructors, a lot of times if you're at the four-year schools, you may end up with whoever's teaching your introductory class as being somebody who's never taught a class before. That's getting their PhD or doing something different. And I think that Wake Tech teachers have a lot more experience and are focused a bit more on knowing how to teach. And so I think that's something that's important that can help those students early on to get some better ideas on how to study, how to learn, how to do things that they could learn from those teachers that have a little bit more teaching experience.
Excellent. And then finally, what's the job market like? Because that's why most of us are interested in our degrees, is because what we're going to do with them post degree. So if you'd like to start this one off.
I just put a few, like just looking at some jobs, just throwing them in, and here are a few numbers. If you get out of your four-year school with a BS degree, you're probably going to start with something where you're doing field analysis, field geology, which is a little less with, probably somewhere between 36, $45,000. A lot of degrees, depending on what you want to do, or a lot of the job market, to earn the higher pay would probably be with a master's degree, where you're going to might perhaps do some geoscientists, petroleum work. There's a lot of work out there. There's nobody that I went to school with, except for one person who just is independently wealthy, that took geology, that is not working in the geology field. And there's a huge variety in jobs, anything from working on the coast and doing things to working near volcanoes to doing environmental work all over the country.
And what did you do as a geologist?
When I first got out of school, I worked at Research Triangle Institute, and I did a variety of things. I worked with asbestos, I worked with testing, I did lead analysis, I traveled and did environmental cleanup at a radioactive contamination site, which was actually pretty neat. I did writing reports for Congress on the environmental states of stormwater runoff for different states. And I did groundwater testing and analysis, and did lots of different things in my time that and I guess air, one of the last things is when they started monitoring air quality. We actually started a lab, and I went around the country and trained people on how to run labs to do air quality analysis and weighing of specimens.
All right, I'm going to stop share for just a second, and then because I don't want you to see what was behind my screen, and I'm going to pull up, maybe I will here. I was just going to go to one of the big job market boards, which is called Indeed. And there's also LinkedIn. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but both of those have large job databases. And let me get those ready, and we'll take a look at. All right. I'm going back to sharing. And so Indeed.com is just a huge database. So if you just type in chemist, this one says Stanford because that's where I'm located. But we're going to remove the location. And just to see the huge variety of chemistry jobs that are out there. So a process chemist is usually wet work. You're doing work at the lab. Pharmaceutical chemist, a plant chemist. That's what I did when I worked in industry. I was a plant chemist, and I did a lot of their emission testings, wastewater testings. I also did tank maintenance. So I did a lot of testing of what was on the floor, making sure it was held in compliance. Here's one for the Center for Disease Control, forensic chemistry, fermentation scientists, and these can be anywhere from as small as a microbrewery to as large as Pfizer, the pharmaceutical company who has one of the COVID vaccines. So the biosciences. So there's a lot of. Well, here's one for the Army Test and Evaluation Command. That sounds interesting. So there's a huge variety depending on what you want to do. And then in the LinkedIn, search by. So again, a formulation chemist, this is for the Clorox company, process chemistry, which is normally bench work. You're just doing testing, verification. Wet etch chemist, an environmental chemist. So there's a huge variety of things. And taking a look at the salary, the low salary on this page is 46 or to 50, all the way up to over 100,000.
Tracy, would you type in geology just to see what you have coming up there?
Sure.
So environmental science, one of the big ones, some with the state. Most of those, the hydrologist one, the entry-level geologist would be what you would get with a BS degree. Full-time geoscientist.
Log interpretation, petrophysics. Doesn't that sound amazing? That sounds so cool. The reservoir, environmental science. So, environmental sciences kind of go across the board. And even if you're a biology major, you can walk into environmental science. What's a Carlin geologist? Drilling data.
Lots of fun stuff.
It is. All right, I don't know where my screen went. There we go.